It's time for a Thanksgiving edition of Cowboys Insider inside the Academy Sports and Outdoor Studios here at the Star in Frisco, home of your Dallas Cowboys, as the Cowboys get set for their annual Thanksgiving Day game against the Los Angeles Chargers. 3:30 AT&T Stadium. Bill Jones, Nate Newton, Rick Goslin, and Daryl Johnston. And yes, the Cowboys need to get back on track, and they need to do it in a hurry against the Chargers after what happened against the Eagles on Sunday night. As always, we kick it off with our opening statement, starting with Moose. Daryl?
Well, the big thing is when you have injuries like this, your margin for error shrinks way down, and it's teams that are struggling with personnel, and that's where Dallas is at right now with these injuries. So you can't be -4 sack differential. You can't be -4 turnover differential.
You know, I just believe this right here. The good thing about Thanksgiving is you don't get a chance to worry about the last game. The coaches tell you, wipe it out of your mind. We're not even going to watch the film. Who did they play? Oh, it's the Chargers, right? Let's go.
Yeah, if Sean Lee's not there, you have to run the football and keep that defense off the field. You got to treat Alfred Morris like he's Zeke Elliott this week. He's got to get 25 carries.
And we know Sean Lee will not play against the Chargers. However, there is hope for not only Tyron Smith, but also Dan Bailey. And Anthony Hitchens said at the outset of the week that he will play on Thursday despite suffering a groin injury against the Eagles on Sunday night. All right, let's look back. Yes, we have to look back at Sunday night. And let's start with Dak Prescott and what went on with the Cowboys offense. What do you see, Daryl?
Well, I didn't see the pressing that a lot of people were talking about. It's just a quarterback who's trying to make plays. So I didn't understand why everybody kind of jumped to that. Obviously, he had his worst rating through his career, the most interceptions that he's had to this point in his career. So it's a bad day at the office, and everybody has a bad day at the office. But I don't think he was pressing. I don't think he was getting outside of his comfort zone.
Yeah, I think he had like maybe one bad pass. The other one was under stress. I mean, they was on him. He's a young quarterback. He's just barely into his second year, and he's going to have to grow. He's going to have to grow. This is what you go through. Troy Aikman went through it, and I think the offensive line was better than ours at this point, you know.
Quarterback is not the problem with this football team, believe me. I thought were they really going to miss Elliott was the speed and the big play element. There's not any speed on this offense right now, so you don't miss the big plays. Now this is an offense that's got to go 10, 15, 12, 17 yards on their big plays, and it's going to take longer drives to score. But the quarterback is not the problem.
Clearly, they lost the game in the second half, but they could have won the game or put themselves in position to win the game had they gotten touchdowns instead of field goals in the first half of that game. The Eagles were coming off a bye. They obviously were rusty in the first half. Defensively for this Dallas team, where do you see where they are now? Because they had a string there in the first half where maybe it was the rustiness of the Eagles, but they had 4 straight possessions, 3 and outs.
Yeah, that second quarter, the game kind of sat there a little while for somebody to take a hold of it. And a lot of that had to do with the way that Dallas's defense was playing at the time, but their offense couldn't play the complementary elements. So, we didn't see the pressure that we'd seen in the previous week, so they just got to get back to what was working before. I think Nate makes a great point. You know, you can't even think about Philadelphia anymore because you're transitioned to the Chargers so much. Don't worry about it.
You know, and it's kind of not degrading, but it makes the defensive lineman feel bad when you almost get it. They had like almost 20 sacks and never got one of them. This guy is very, very evasive. He's a good guy. He can throw the ball on the move. It hurts the defense when you can't get to a quarterback.
That also is the best team in the NFL right now. I mean, this is not some slapdick that came in here and and going to be homecoming face for the Cowboys. This is a very good team, and as the game went on, you knew they were going to get better. The Cowboys kept leaving them hanging around. If they had scored touchdowns and put some distance between themselves and the Eagles, it might have been different. But when you're settling for field goals against a team like this, you got problems.
Third down. In the first half of that game, the Eagles were 0 for 6 on third down. In the third quarter and on into the fourth quarter, they were 5 for 6 and 1 for 1 on fourth down. On the other hand, the Cowboys couldn't convert on third down in the second half of that game.
This was a point of emphasis with Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz in the offseason was the situational aspect of the game, third downs and red zone, and that was the difference in this game. Very good on third down in the second half, very good in the red zone in the second half. So a slow start for Carson Wentz, but he got back to what they had been preaching all offseason and earlier this year.
You get a 60-some yard kickoff return. That should have been 6. Right. You get down there in the red zone again. That should have been 6 because you knew and you feeling it that the rust was coming off this team. You knew that Philadelphia was the better team. But if we just keep it close to the end, but it never got to that point. They just got better and better as the game went on.
I think you've got to stay in character. You cannot throw Jason Witten and Cole Beasley 5 total balls. I mean, these are your secure receivers. These are the guys that keep the chains moving. If you can't convert third down, find your tight end, find your slot receiver.
All right, enough about the Eagles. It's time to move on to the Chargers and Thanksgiving Day here on Cowboys Insider. And yes, it's a Chargers team that scored 54 points on Sunday, and we're back to discuss that when Cowboys Insider continues in a moment.
Cowboys Insider, presented by Baylor Scott & White, is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, the official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys, AT&T, mobilizing your world, and by Baylor Scott & White. We're changing health care for life. This segment is brought to you by the Dallas Morning News. Nobody does sports like Sports Day. Your home for complete Dallas Cowboys coverage.
Stack left, Wentz in the gun back to throw, looking to his left, throwing into the end zone to the post, and the ball is caught for a touchdown by Alshon Jeffrey on a deep slant in front of two Cowboys, Kayvon Frazier and Jordan Lewis.
Well, what a catch by Alshon Jeffrey.
Yes, it was the Cowboys falling to the Eagles on Sunday night, but it's the annual quick turnaround as the Cowboys play the Chargers on Thursday afternoon. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Let's talk about these Chargers a little bit. And the best man to talk about them right off the bat here is Daryl Johnston. He called that game for Fox 54-24 over Buffalo last week. And poor Nathan Peterman, making his NFL debut, had 5 picks in the first half of that game.
Yeah, but he didn't get a lot of help, and I'm sure we'll take a little bit of criticism, but I'm only going to put 1 on Nate Peterman during the course of that 5 interception first half. The bad thing for Dallas fans right now is the Chargers are actually hitting their stride. Anthony Lynn talked to us about the Jacksonville game being the hardest loss he's ever been a part of, not only as a coach but as a player. I mean, that's a pretty big catalog of years for Anthony Lynn to say that. And they bounced back, and you could see that there was some things going on between Wisenhunt, Phillips, and Lynn. All 3 big personalities, all trying to do things a certain way. Unfortunately for Dallas, it looks like they may have got some stuff figured out against the Bills last weekend.
And defense was putting them in great position to score points when they didn't have pick sixes themselves in that game. But Phillip Rivers, who suffered a concussion the week before, came back, had a big day against Buffalo. And you get a veteran quarterback coming in here, that's always tough.
You know, Phillip been riding on his own for maybe 6 years now. They have not put a lot of great talent around him, but now they got a running back and a wide receiver and a tight end. And they're producing. And like I said, he's got the never say die attitude. He's fiery. He'll get after you. So if this game is close, man, I don't feel real good about it.
Yeah, if you thought Alshon Jeffrey was loaded, where do you see Keenan Allen this Thursday? The thing about the Chargers, they're 4-16, but they're not a 4-16. They've lost 2 games by 2 points. They lost 2 other games by 3 points, 1 in overtime. They're playing everybody competitive, and they, like Daryl said, I think they put it all together the other day. This is a good football team coming in here.
And this is a team that all of a sudden is able to challenge for the AFC West division with what Kansas City's happened there and with Denver and Oakland as well. All right. The elephant, though, in the room is that defense and Joey Bosa. And Bosa, you'd think these other guys the Cowboys have been facing the last couple of weeks are a handful. How about Joey Bosa?
Well, we talked about this after Atlanta, and this is the big thing. This is that same system. This is Gus Bradley. This is one of the originals in this system. So Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram on the outside. You thought Beasley and Claiborne were tough in Atlanta on a fast track. These 2 guys are unbelievable. I've yet to see somebody like Bosa. He's 6'6", 280 pounds, and he moves really, really fluidly.
Is there a J.J. Watt comparison there?
Absolutely, absolutely. And everybody you talk to, whether it's Richie Incognito, who's a guard for the Buffalo Bills, or even the coaching staff, saying that Bosa is so far ahead right now in his 21st game in the NFL with his technique and his transitioning in, setting a guy up and using something else. So this is a very, very good front. Denzel Perryman at the middle linebacker position is a difference maker, and then they got 2 safeties that remind me of Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas.
They can flat out get it. They're not great against the run because they shut you out in the pass. I mean, they got 30 team sacks. They got 12 interceptions. They got 7 fumbles. This team is eating and they feeding, and the Cowboys got to protect the ball.
Yeah, Bosa and Ingram have a combined 19 sacks.
Yes.
I mean, this is the best edge rush they're going to see all season. And you better have your tackle play firmed up, and you're going to have to give these guys some help. And you better hope that Tyron Smith is there, because these guys they'll have pressure on Prescott the entire day.
You know, in a way, with Zeke's suspension kicking in, 3 games ago, the first 2 games, you get the Falcons, and then you get the Eagles, and then you get the Chargers. And this defense is almost like you couldn't pick 3 worse teams to go up against the first 3 games of his suspension.
Without a doubt. And that's what some of the people said. I think everybody knew you were going to get your 6 games. And if you're going to fight this, when is it going to start? When is it really going to kick in? I think you're exactly right. It kicked in at the worst possible time for Dallas. They had just taken them at the beginning of the year. They were a little bit rusty. They weren't playing all that well. Hindsight's 20/20. Roger was going to sit you down for 6 games. You're going to sit for 6.
All right, we continue here on Cowboys Insider in a moment. How do the Cowboys overcome these injuries like some other teams in the league have been able to overcome injuries this season?
This segment was brought to you by the Dallas Morning News. Nobody does sports like Sports Day. Your home for complete Dallas Cowboys coverage. This segment is brought to you by DraftKings. Play for free today at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site.
In an empty gun on 4th and 10. Back, sets, looks, stands, avoids a sack, rolls to his right, throws an interception in the end zone because Butler didn't turn around. The ball is picked off by Malcolm Jenkins, the safety.
That interception, one of 3 thrown by Dak Prescott against the Eagles. That one coming in desperation time. We take a look at this Cowboys team as they try to get back on track against the Chargers. And we talked last segment about how tough this Chargers defense is. So offensively, Tyron Smith is holding out hope that he'll be able to get back out there on Thursday afternoon. What do you think, though, that they need to do offensively, regardless of whether Tyron is in there or not?
They give up 100.
They give it all year, and it can't be any truer. Now, there's a guy that's there that hasn't been there for the first 8 weeks, and that's Denzel Perryman. He's a difference maker on that defense when you talk about running the football. He's a great tackler. He's the guy that's controlling everything. So we can talk about getting out there running the football. They're going to have to work, and they're going to have to work in the middle of that field. You don't want to get on the edges, which is where right now I think Dallas is actually a little bit better. I thought they ran the ball well against Philly on the edge and struggled inside.
They give up 138 yards rushing. Rush it every chance you get. I don't care where the game at, how far behind, how much of a lead you have, 138 yards. Get it going.
How do you slow down a pass rusher? You make them tackle runners. Pass rushers want to tackle the quarterback. They don't want to tackle the running backs. Run the ball. And like I said earlier, you have to treat Morris like he's Zeke Elliott this week. You've got to get him the ball, feed him the ball 25 times, keep your defense off the field.
All right, and defensively, Sean Lee again is going to be out this week. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Hitchens says he's going to give it a go. He's going to be able to play on Thursday. We'll see if he's actually able to or not. A lot of weapons on this Chargers offense. What are you seeing defensively from this team, though?
Well, even if Hitchens can play, how long can he play? It's a quick turnaround. Again, it's just that huge thing with Sean Lee out of the lineup. You know, everybody's got to step up. The margin for error shrinks down. This is a good running team. Melvin Gordon looked better last week than he's looked in a long time. Austin Eckler is another one of these change-up backs like Corey Clement that you saw in Philadelphia. He's going to be your speed guy. So they're going to throw a lot at Dallas.
Who's going to be the guy to step up? We talked about it. Who's going to be the guy? It's somebody. It's time for somebody to say, I'm the man. I'm taking over. I'm going to make every play that comes my way.
I miss Barry Church.
Very good point.
You look at Barry Church, he was the guy that held that whole thing together back in defense. And look at Jacksonville's defense now with Barry Church there. I mean, back in the summer, he said he thought there was better talent in Jacksonville than in Dallas. We all laughed at him. Well, he was right.
There's in many ways, there's more talent on that Jacksonville defense than a lot of teams in this league. All right, we come back here on Cowboys Insider in just a moment. We take a trip around the league. Some pretty good matchups on this Thanksgiving weekend.
This segment was brought to you by DraftKings. Play for free today at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site.
Snap to Prescott on 3rd down, rushed, and the ball came out. It's a fumble. The Eagles have picked it up, and they are running. Nigel Bradham down the right side, broke a tackle to the goal line. Touchdown, Eagles.
Cowboys had 5-5 on the season after the loss to the Eagles, now 4 games behind Philly, turning the attention now to the wild card race in the NFC. But let's go around the league now here on Cowboys Insider, inside the Academy Sports and Outdoor Studios here at the Star. And one of the best matchups of this weekend, the Saints play at the Rams. And how about that Saints team last week? Now 8 straight wins. They come from 15 points down in the fourth quarter to beat a Redskins team that thought they had it in the bag.
Just keep winning in different ways they haven't won in the past. Go up and really have a great game in Buffalo when everybody always thought that the Saints were a team that didn't travel well, especially outside in elements. Now they're coming back. I thought it was a great job by the Redskins, taking it at that point. But this is a team that's starting to believe in themselves, and you're hearing a lot of people saying, this reminds me of the 2009 Saints team that went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that season turned out pretty well for the Saints.
Yes. Yeah, I was just thinking that my man Breeze at the last drive went 11 for 11. I mean, he was very he let his team win, and when he needed to take over, he did.
They've changed their character. This was an all Drew Brees team, and now they are running the ball. And Ingram and Kamara, they can control the clock, and they're taking the defense off the field. Their defense is playing great. They're not asking Drew Brees to win every play in every game. They can win it on the ground, they can win it on defense. And Breeze is not a supporting cast player, but he doesn't have to be front and center in every game. And I think that's a difference for this team. And the Rams sort of met their match last week against the Vikings, who are obviously, they're very strong on defense, and they're getting the job done with Case Keenum. The early game on Thanksgiving has the Vikings going to the Lions. That's a good matchup in the NFC North, as the Vikings are sitting there at 8-2, and the Lions, with a win, could be right there on their heels in the division race.
Yeah, and don't ever count out Matthew Stafford. I mean, I think he has more game-winning drives in the fourth quarter over the last couple of years than anybody else in the NFL. And this is a team that we had early on a couple of times. They've gotten healthy. They went through a little bit of a lull and had a bump in the road. They're getting some of that offensive line back. So it'll be interesting. I think that's going to be a good game. Minnesota off of a big win, knocking off the Rams, might be a little fat and sassy going to Detroit.
No, the Fighting Zimmermans, they ain't going for it. Matthew, if you get behind, you're going to lose this one. Believe me, they got that type of defense, that type of run game. They get behind, they'll lose this one. People forget that Detroit's already beaten Minnesota in Minnesota. It don't matter. If they sweep them, they've got the tiebreaker, and all of a sudden it's a race in that division. If Minnesota wins, the race is done.
And keep in mind that the Vikings battled through injuries themselves. They lost their starting quarterback first game of the year. They lost a very good running back, the rookie Dalvin Cook. All right, the Panthers lead the wild card race at 7-3, coming off a bye. They go to the Jets. From a Cowboys perspective, it's the wild card race there. There's teams bunched up right there. Obviously, the Cowboys have to start winning games, but Carolina at 7-3 right now.
And this is really all about the health of Cam Newton. He was not 100% as the season started, coming off of shoulder surgery, missed a lot of camp, a lot of the OTAs. So they've gotten better and better as he's become more of that offense in the running game. And I think Christian McCaffrey's starting to kind of solidify his role there.
Isn't the tight end coming back?
Yeah,
Olsen is
Greg
close.
Olsen.
Greg Olsen's coming back.
That's his favorite there. So, I mean, in their defense, man, their defense continues to play lights out. And like you say, McCaffrey, boy, he's found his sea legs in his league.
This is what it's come to. The Cowboys need the Jets to bail them out.
Let's go, Jets. All right, we continue here on Cowboys Insider in just a moment. The keys to a Cowboys victory over the Chargers when we come back.
Cowboys Insider, presented by Baylor Scott & White, was brought to you by AT&T, mobilizing your world. Rico's, make every game a home game with Rico's. Baylor Scott & White, it's easy to find the right doctor right now at BaylorScottandWhite.com. And by NFL Game Pass. You'll never miss a game again. Enjoy full access to coaches' films and game replays from Week 1 to the Super Bowl. Subscribe at DallasCowboys.com/Game Pass.
From inside the Academy Sports and Outdoor Studios here at the Star, final couple of minutes here of Cowboys Insider. Bill Jones, Nate Newton, Rick Goslin, and Daryl Johnston. What are the keys to a Cowboys victory over the Los Angeles Chargers. What do you think, Moose?
The biggest thing about this team right now, Anthony Lynn called this the most talented team when he was doing the interviews for the process of getting a job. So don't look at this as a team with a new coaching staff and a 4-6 record. This is a very good team with a franchise quarterback that's leading them. 3 former head coaches involved at the top of this organization. You better control those edges. I'm telling you right now, this is a talented team that figured some stuff out last week.
I agree, control the edges, but you know what? When you're in the red zone, you have to get 6. You have to score, you have to take care of the ball, and you have to tackle.
Step up, Des. Make a play, make a difference. Get 100 yards, get in the end zone. Do something. This team needs you right now.
It's been a while since Des had 100 yards.
It's been a while since he's been in the end zone.
All right. It is Thanksgiving, though. You have some fond Thanksgiving memories
great
playing this game.
Playing
right?
How many turkey legs did you get from Madden?
Probably about 8 over the years. Playing with Moose, playing with my boys, man. It's always memorable when we play these games. Yes.
How about you, Moose? What's your favorite Thanksgiving memory? From a Cowboys perspective.
Oh, that's a tough one.
The Jason Garrett game.
Yeah, Jason, the Green Bay game is fantastic, but I just remember, the one thing I'll always remember is a Tuesday practice in a driving rainstorm and no let up with Jimmy.
Yeah.
An hour and a half out there, full patches.
You remember that, man?
That was unbelievable.
But we all thank God for Jimmy anyway.
Absolutely.
Wherever
All right,
you are.
See you again next week here on Cowboys Insight.
Wow.